And we are live. Awesome. Yay. Okay, so happy Monday, guys. Welcome to, let me see, episode 22 of Change School TV. And as you know, the aim of our live episodes every week is to sort of reset your mindset and your mojo, to kick away any Monday blues, and try to start the week on a positive footing with some inspiration, tips, and insights. So tonight I'm super excited because we have a very special guest, Stephanie Dickson, who I hinted was coming on the show last week, but I don't think we gave away your name, Steph. So I want to kick us off, maybe just to, I guess, set a bit of context. So last week we had a mindset episode on how to move from networking to tribe building. So tonight is a follow-on session. Obviously, you are a tribe building queen, and so I want to share your story and your wedges of wisdom with our audience. So what I want to do is, I have so many questions and I have to contain myself, but I want to formally introduce you to our audience first, just in case, for those who don't know you and don't know the amazing work that you do. So I've got my notes. I'm going to read off this for a minute and then we can dive in.
Awesome.
Yeah, cool. So Stephanie is a marketer, event organizer, and avid connector of conscious individuals and brands. She's founder of The Wedge Asia, a leading platform that connects conscious brands with conscious people through a series of events. They're building a community of people who want to live more consciously by providing bite-sized information through their 3 slices of inspiration, knowledge, and action. Love that. She's also the founder of Singapore's Green is the New Black, Asia's first conscious festival for people who want to live more consciously by improving the way they think, work, and consume while doing more good in the world. This is a place where fun and social environmental responsibility go hand in hand. So, Steph, clearly you are a badass, and I can't wait for everyone to hear about it. And before we start, I just want to say thanks again for being here and for always supporting us. You've been so supportive of all our initiatives. And for those who don't know, this is not Stephanie's first rodeo on Change School TV.
No.
So I think it was 2016, so 2 years back, and Change School TV had a slightly different twist. We had our online summit, and you had shared some really great tips and tools for cultivating the mind. And so really excited to have you back. And tonight, for those who are just jumping in, just to recap again, we're on episode 22, and Stephanie Dickson is here to share with us her tips, tools, lessons, and journey of tribe building like a boss. So, Steph, since I actually just mentioned the summit, so obviously I myself and Grace and actually a lot of people here in Singapore are third culture kids, and I know you are too because you're Australian, Scottish, so maybe that's a good place to start. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about your background, what brought you to Asia, and what's sort of been keeping you here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be back on Change School TV. I guess originally we moved to Asia because of my dad's job. So I actually spent the majority of my life in Asia. Now Singapore, I've been here for 11 years in total, which is probably the longest I've ever been in one place. I was born in Australia, but but my parents are Scottish, and I grew up in Asia. So definitely third culture kid. Lived in Japan, Singapore, spent a little bit of time in Italy, largely also Australia and Scotland. So yeah, what's been keeping me here, I originally moved back to Singapore after university because I got what at the time was my dream job. I was planning fashion festivals for around Asia, and I always wanted to work in fashion, but I didn't really have the patience to be a fashion designer. And then I realized that actually I love bringing people together. I've always been the event planner in my group. I was always the party girl, planning crazy events for my group. I was one of the sports captains because I loved the festivities that went around it, not because I was sporty. So yeah, events have definitely been in my blood since I was a little girl. And so getting an events job in fashion was just like the dream. And then a few years in, I kind of had a bit of an awakening and realized that fashion is actually a very polluting industry. It's very socially corrupt and irresponsible. And once I learned those things, I really couldn't unlearn them. And so that was the beginning of my awakening and the beginning of me starting my exploration around conscious living. And that's where the wedge and green is new black kind of came from.
Awesome. Super cool. So, I mean, I think, as you know, we've got a lot of viewers or listeners who are sort of current or aspiring career changers, or probably in some kind of transition trying to figure out like what their next step could be. So you mentioned kind of some of the, I guess, your professional background initially. At what point did you decide that you wanted to jump on the entrepreneurial path?
Yeah, I guess it's such a good question, because I'm trying to think, like, was there one single moment where I was like, that's it, I'm going to be an entrepreneur? And I think it probably was that basic. I think I was early 20s when I decided that I wasn't going to work for someone anymore, and I wanted to do something to change the world. And I just kind of had a crazy moment, and I was young enough that I just thought it would be a great idea to quit and start something. So I think if I don't know if I would do that now, to be honest. I think it was just one of those things that I'd only been working for 4 years, and I'd had enough of my job, and I'd had this awakening, and I was like, I got to do something about this. And so I just quit and decided that I was going to do something about it. I had a little bit of savings, and yeah, I just kind of blindly threw myself into it.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. And I think, I think I get asked that question sometimes too, and I always get a little stuck as well, because I'm like, was there a moment? I feel like I kind of just stumbled onto it. So maybe, do you want to share, like, I know you've obviously done so much since then, and I actually remember probably your early days when you first were starting, and we were probably starting roughly around the same time, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, it's just been amazing to like watch your journey and see how much you've done, especially in the sustainability space. Like here in Singapore, I don't think it's probably not the easiest one to go tackle when you want to start out. So can you maybe share a little bit about like what that early phase was like, and how you kind of just like was able to build such an engaged and active community?
Yeah, I mean, I guess in the beginning, when I started having these realizations that we were all playing a part and there's no planet B, and kind of these big epiphanies, I guess, I kind of felt alone in it at the time. Like I was trying to find a group of people that was in the same headspace, but that wasn't really preachy or wasn't really, it didn't make me feel like I should know a lot more than I do. I was obviously in the very beginning of this journey, but I wanted to do something and to make a difference. And I couldn't find like a group of people that understood me. And I went to a lot of female networking events. And at the time, I mean, this is like three years ago now, because I was so lost and confused about what I wanted to do, I felt really judged, actually. And of course, a lot of that is probably my own story around how I saw people reacting to me, that is how I didn't feel welcomed. I think that's more a better way of saying it.
Yeah.
So because I didn't find a group or a place where I could connect very easily with people that were like-minded, coming from an events background, I was like, you know what, screw it, I'm just going to build my own.
Yeah.
And so that's really, why I started looking at how I could build a conscious community. And I guess my interests were very different to my friends at the time. I was starting to understand that all of our choices mattered, and that every dollar we spent was casting a vote towards something or a world that we wanted to see. And that's a really big thing to go through, but not everyone goes through those moments. I often refer to it as like my Matrix moments, where, if you've ever seen the film, like the main character Neo is presented with like a blue pill or a red pill. And if he takes the red pill, then, he goes into this very unknown area, and it's really like facing the harsh truth of realities, but there's freedom there. Whereas the blue pill is going back to blissful ignorance, but it's not the truth. And so that's how I kind of felt in those moments where I built this career in fashion. I could have kept going and doing that and buying fast fashion, but I just couldn't do it anymore. And so I did tumble down rabbit hole and took that red pill and just kept opening my eyes up. So you kind of need to be around people who are going on a similar journey or who are interested in that. And so with Green is the New Black, I started doing a lot of research, discovering a lot about this sustainability and these subjects, discovering some amazing brands, and just sharing and telling people about it. And I realized that actually they were really interested, but they didn't know where to find them. They didn't know what to trust. They didn't have anything to go by. And 3 years ago, people weren't that comfortable spending a lot of money online. If it was cheap, then it was an easy buy, and if it didn't fit, it didn't matter, for fashion. Or if it was a brand you knew, then you were fine to spend the money. But those in-between independent brands really struggled online. And so through that, I just realized, okay, well, people have an interest in this. They just don't know where to get the stuff. So let me throw an event together, because that's what I can do as part of this conversation, bring all these amazing brands together, and then, let's see if it works. And that was when we did our first Green is the New Black in 2015.
Awesome. And and I think, I can't remember, was that the one I went to? It might have been. I know I've been to a couple, but they've just gotten bigger and bigger and better and better. And I think for me, obviously there's so many events and great initiatives here in Singapore, but I think I find Green is the New Black events really, really unique. And like I was saying earlier, like one of the things I find so fascinating is how you really gather people around some shared values that they really believe in. And I feel that they kind of live and breathe it, and they really spread it and amplify it. So I'm just curious, what's your secret sauce? How do you get people to, for lack of a better word, buy in, right? But how do you really gather people around a common belief or common values? And why do you think it is that you've been able to build such a great conscious community of really active members? Because I think that's quite unique for Singapore.
Yeah, that's such a loaded question. There's so many parts to it. I guess the first thing I started with was just a really clear goal. I think, I was very clear that I wanted to help, I wanted to further the sustainability conversation, and I wanted to do that in a really fun way. So every time it came down to, okay, what are we going to create? What kind of voice do we want to have? It was always around, okay, let's be cheeky, let's be fun, but let's actually provide value around this conversation. And because I wasn't an expert, part of my big focus was bringing together the people that actually knew what they were talking about. As I said, my whole life I've always been bringing people together. So that was, part of my strong suit, I guess. So I knew that was a strong suit, and I wanted to bring people together. But I think the main thing is that we've always massively said out loud, we're a work in progress. So we're not perfect. We don't pretend to be perfect. That's what we work with. We bring everyone together on one place so that we can all share and we can all be part of the conversation together. So I think that was a really big part for us, that I always wanted to be as authentic as we could, but still be cheeky and keep to our fun and sassy personality.
Yeah.
And then I think the main thing as well is that we were very, very consistent. So I would say the number one thing that we did was being consistent. So it meant that, our videos came out every Wednesday. And if they didn't come out on Wednesday, then they'd have to come out on Thursday, because obviously we're human, right? So not everything can be perfect, but we would do that. And then social media posts, we would either be consistently posting all the time or not posting. There's nothing really in between, none of this drizzle. So just showing up consistently. And I guess over time, we've done that even more. So now, newsletters on Thursdays always go out. And then the festivals always happen in Singapore, October, November. And there's just that consistency. So when you consistently show up in the same way and you just get a little better every time, then that builds up trust. And trust is really the basis of all relationships. So that was a really important thing for us to do. And sometimes it meant we were staying up later than we should have been, or working on weekends to have that consistency.
Yep. Yeah, no, I definitely hear you. We have tried to be really good about that as well on the consistency side. And like you said, sometimes things, fall apart, but you just come back up as soon as and quickly as you can, right? And just keep things moving. So what would you say what was the hardest part, or what was one of I'm sure there's been loads of ups and downs, but what was one of the hardest things you had to kind of face as you were building?
I guess there's two things. One was probably myself. I think I was definitely my biggest obstacle. I think my mindset, and I have this uncanny ability to spiral down very quickly. And this is part of the reason I really wanted to focus on consciousness, because it was something that I was struggling with so much. This idea of being present, this idea of wanting to actually enjoy my life and not get so caught up in it, not being trapped in like a comparison trap. So, and, you know, stopping myself from this very negative spiral. So in the beginning, my first 18 months were definitely the hardest on a personal level, because I spiraled down very deeply. I fell into a complete state of overwhelm multiple times. I think I burned out twice in my first year. And it's just, you know, you kind of get to this point where I had friends who thought I was depressed because I was just in such a deep, dark place, and I just couldn't get myself out of it easily until one day I just realized that no, I'm not going to be this person, and I clawed my way out of that dark hole that I put myself into. So that was definitely the hardest thing in the beginning on a personal level. On a professional level, I think the hardest thing was when we went live with one of our events and we started getting attacked in our Facebook event page because of one of the partners that we were working with. And that was a really horrifying thing. And I guess every brand has to face it at some point when you start getting the naysayers and the haters, and it's just not that easy. You know, we'd had a really positive community. In general, sustainability, people in sustainability are super supportive. Everyone wants to help each other out, and it was amazing. So the first time having to deal with someone that was really negative and just hating all over us was very painful, and I got really upset. I burst into tears. I couldn't handle my shit. But it was the first time that it happened, and so I guess you learn from that, and basically I ignored all the advice that everyone gave me of just ignoring it, don't engage with them, it's not worth it, da, da, da. I did the opposite of what everyone told me, because I trusted my gut. My gut was like, you have to do something about this. This is your brand. This is your baby. This is your company. Like, you can't just let these people publicly say this. Like, there must be a way to speak to them. So, you know, I crafted these, spent an hour crafting a little Facebook message to like write on their comment, right? And then they just trashed me again. And then I wrote a saying, like, guys, please just email me. Like, I want to speak to you about this. And then eventually they emailed me. Two girls emailed me. One of them wrote this essay that was just like horrific. And I just like, how can someone be so cruel to a person they've never met before? And the other one was a little more constructive. So basically I slept on it, and I just sent them one message the next day that was like, hi, Stephanie here, the founder. I'd love to meet you for coffee, so we can discuss this. That's all I said. Yeah. And everyone was like, don't bother engaging with them. Don't meet up with them. They're only going to trash you more, blah, blah, blah. In the end, we met up, and the first thing she did when she sat down was apologize. She was like, I'm really sorry. And I think what I realized is she just needed to be heard, and I was listening. And I followed my gut instinct 100% on that and ignored everything everyone told me I should do. And in the end, she gave us some incredible advice. She ended up going publicly and taking back what she said, which was amazing, first of all. And then secondly, she came to the event and gave me some really honest feedback that helped us to build a better festival next time.
Wow, that's great. I love that story. And actually, no, you know what? Thank you so much for sharing that, because I had one of my questions was going to be about naysayers and what to do. And it's really cool that you had that experience and have shared that, because I do think, you know, you're absolutely right. I think we get so much advice unsolicited and sometimes from the best intentions, right? But I think what you said is super powerful, is that sometimes you just have to go with your gut. And it seems that it really did a good service for you and the business. So good on you. That's super brave.
Yeah, and I just like to remind people as well that there are humans behind brands. So ever since that happened to me, I have never been that rude to anyone. I get no matter how big they are, I do my best to be really polite and be like, I know this is not your fault. However, this is what's happening, you know, whatever, you know how it goes.
Yeah. No, totally. No, it's so true. And I think it's such a great point, because it's true. It's like, especially the bigger the brands get or the more impactful they get, you do forget that. And sometimes, you know, whether it's perception or the people behind it, right? It's so important to remember the human connection side of things, right? Yes. Okay, so that's kind of, I guess we're trying to cover the good, bad, the ugly, right? So what's kind of been the most rewarding part of your journey?
It's the moments, and I know straight away, it's the moments where people come up to me and they'll say, oh my goodness, I had no idea that this is what was really going on. And I'm so empowered now to make a change in my life. And I'm going to now remove plastic from my life. Or I'm now going to not buy fast fashion. Or I'm going to, read up more about this because I feel so like I need to understand what's happening and I can't believe I didn't know. So that moment when others have that awakening moment the way that I did and we were able to give them that, that's incredible. And the other moment is a similar one when people come up and they say, I felt like that speaker was just speaking right to me, like they understood everything I said, and or I made this amazing connection. I feel so connected again. And it's just those little moments of people and how they feel like something has shifted for them. And if we have been able to shift something for one person and they have that epiphany or they have that aha moment or they feel deeply connected to another human again, then I feel like we've done our job. And that for me is always the most rewarding moments.
Totally. No, I second that for sure. I know exactly what you're talking about because you can see it in an audience sometimes too, right? Especially at events. And if they are able to share that something resonates or that something's shifting how they think, then that is really more than you can ask for, right? When you're doing these things.
Exactly.
So, okay, so maybe you could share, I think, sometimes when we talk about networking or tribe building on Change School TV, we always give, tips and tools and strategies, but I think something that may be really valuable for people to know as well is to get some insight to like what's your sort of, how much time are you spending like building relationships, meeting new people, how do you kind of break, because I mean, you're doing a million things. And I always say it every time your name comes up, I'm like, she's a super trooper. I don't know how she does it. She's like all over emails, all over calls, events, all this stuff. It's amazing. So maybe you could share a little bit about like how you structure your days or your time to really make new connections and nurture existing ones.
Well, first and foremost, I have to say that I'm not alone. I have Trisha and Paula, who are just the most incredible women, and together the three of us are able to do everything that you see. It's not just me. But I think more importantly, I mean, it really depends. There are some people who, when we have our festival, basically, so we come out with our festival, I ask a lot of our community. People that we're connected to. I ask you guys as well, like, please help us share, please help us connect, open doors, invite your friends. Do you have any speaker suggestions? Like, I ask a lot. So then in return, they all come back and ask me for favors, or maybe I've already done them favors as well. And that's part of building a separate tribe. So there's the tribe that follows Green is the New Black, but then there's our friend tribe and I guess our peer tribe who we want to support as well. So I ask a lot, but then I give a lot back as well. And I think that's always fair. And, that's like one of the most important things to me is like nurture, as you said, nurturing relationships and making sure that when someone that's looked after us or when someone that, we think they're doing an incredible thing, of course we're going to support them. And a little bit goes a long way when you're an entrepreneur and when you're starting something new or you're part of a movement. So we never, devalue that and the people who have supported us along the way. So that's like one of the most important things for us. And then I guess further to that, new relationships, like right now we're taking Green is New Black to Hong Kong. So we made 3 trips last year. We made a bunch of meetings. We tried to provide value to people there. And then we've just had such an incredible response. Like people there are super excited to have it. They just want to get involved. And we're just having amazing conversations with people and everyone's connecting us up. And it's really inspiring and exciting that everyone wants to be involved. And I guess that's the beautiful thing about what we've created with Green is New Black is we have created a place where there's something for everyone and where lots of people can get involved. And so everyone is kind of joining in and we're kind of building a big community in Hong Kong now. But again, it wouldn't be without people believing in the vision or connecting with us and then going and representing it themselves. So that's a beautiful thing about a tribe, I guess.
Yes, and it's super exciting. I can't wait to see how everything grows in Hong Kong. I've been following a little bit and I've been seeing it, but I can't wait to see how it all evolves.
Yeah.
So maybe another thing you can share that I think probably a lot of people who, I think tribe building, even whether it's for something driven by a really big vision, or if it's even for a personal project, or even if it's just for your own sort of career and professional development, or even personal development, right? How could you suggest? I think there's a lot of fear sometimes and hesitation because people are, either scared to ask for what it is they want, or maybe scared to approach people, or maybe afraid that someone will say no. What are some tips you would give to someone who's just starting out, or who's just kind of, like you were saying, like if we rewind back to when you were just getting set up and trying to find those communities that you felt, were filled with like minds and were welcoming to you? Like, how do you find them, or how do you start to find who could be in your tribe?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, I guess in the beginning, particularly, it's a lot of just going to events, connecting with people, trying to provide value, and just, you're always going to remember someone that connected you with someone else, or that gave you a really great piece of advice, or that made you feel something. That you're always going to remember that that person helped you. So I think providing a lot of value early on is great. I mean, for us, obviously, we were building a platform, we were building an event platform. So having strategic partners that kind of got the same vision, or that we were connected to, and giving them some value, being like, oh, can you join us as a speaker? Would you like to have a booth? Like, figuring out what kind of value, how can we support what they're focused on with our platform, and therefore grow together long term. So I guess in the beginning, it was just about taking a chance and a risk on people, and just saying, look, I'm happy to do XYZ for you, and maybe for me, you can do XYZ too. So just a lot of barter trading, and a lot of marketing support for our friends or people we wanted to be our friends, and just sharing. And yeah, there's a lot of time, I guess, spent in the beginning of building up those relationships. And I guess we've been lucky that we were connected, or we found the right people because of the space we were in, and we're still working with all of the partners we started with, basically, which is amazing. And we're just growing together, and we can support their growth and they can support ours. But yeah, in the beginning, it's really about just engaging and seeing how you can help them, and then not being scared to be like, okay, if I can do this for you, maybe you can also help with this.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with just being like, let's do something for each other. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm so happy. I mean, because I feel like a broken record. I always say that. I'm like, know your ask, just get out there, ask someone, offer whatever you can. But it's nice to hear it from somebody else, and just be like, yeah, that's totally what I do as well. Now, the other thing is, something I always sort of say, whether it's in our online course or, on TV, is I'm a believer in sort of finding your own style, because there's no point like trying to be like super extroverted or trying to work a room if that's just not what you're comfortable with. So maybe you could share, like, how would you describe your own style? Are you that person who kind of like gets in and kind of gets around the room in the hour? Because I know, like, I know Grace does that really, really well. Like, she can talk to people really fast and really leave a lasting impression and make a lasting impression. Whereas for me, I usually like, I pick a handful and I'll come back next time for the next handful. So what's kind of your style, and what's worked really well?
Yeah, I guess it's really funny to admit, because I run networking events and these massive festivals, but I'm actually very shy when it comes to networking. And I'm kind of, I feel really awkward, and I don't love approaching people, which is really surprising. But that's why I always have networking games at my events, because for the introverts in the room like me, who need some kind of activity for them to break the ice, that's always really important for us. So that's why I do that, because I know what it's like to be the you and I guess, in the scenario, not that very, avert people. So I guess I think I just try to really deeply connect with a couple of people and listen to them, and seeing if there's something I can help them with, or if there's someone I can connect them with. That's always kind of where I start, and just, try to have a lasting impression with a few interesting people. And I think then a lot of it is just, you can tell pretty quickly if you're connecting with someone or not. So I think just fostering those, and if I'm having a really amazing conversation with someone, then I just keep it going. So I think for me, it's more about having deep conversation with a few people than trying to meet the whole room.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Has anyone ever said no to you? Have you ever run into a situation where you've asked for something and someone was like, no? Because I feel like sometimes with all the fear and like doubt that we have, like it's maybe we just need to hear what happens in those scenarios to know that it's really not that bad. So has that ever happened to you?
I mean, I guess I've had speakers say no, to speaking, which is fine, a couple of times, or it just hasn't worked out. I think people are mostly very nice when they have to let you down, when you've asked them for something, or they just ignore you, I guess. There's like emails not returned, or, eventually the conversation just dies out and you're like, oh, well, okay, there's only so many times I'm going to chase someone before I take a hint. And I just think, you have to just grow thick skin. It's like sometimes you don't also know what's going on with that person's life. And that's what I always think about. I try not to take it too personally because I know now what I'm like. And sometimes it takes me a month to reply to someone's email. And I feel awful because when that used to happen to me, I used to be like, oh my gosh, they just ignored me. And I would create this whole dialogue in my head and it's like spiral down, which was just so like self-indulgent now that I look at it and just pathetic. But it was where I was at that moment in my life. And so I accept it now and I look back and go, yeah, okay, but I don't need to do that anymore. I've learned that lesson. So because I know what it's like on the other side when you just have like, hundreds of emails that you're clearing all the time. The email inbox never ends and it's not that easy. So you kind of have to be connected to someone or meet them at an event, find out if they're going to be somewhere and try and connect that way, I guess. But yeah, so I've had people say no, and I guess, you just grow thicker skin and you're like, okay, maybe it's not right for now. And it goes back to the intuition thing. I mean, if it's really the speakers, so for my example, like I've had a lot of speakers, like over, I think almost 200 speakers now in the last couple of years. So the ones that are the most painful for me to get are never the best. They're always the worst speakers ever. And I'm like, I should have known because it was so difficult to get you there. It was not in flow. It was not easy. And the ones that instantly write back and are like, yes, this is amazing, I'm in, are always the ones that are just the best. So it goes back to that flow and just reading a situation for what it is.
Totally. Amazing. Thanks for sharing on that. So, okay, I know I've asked you heaps of questions. I'm just scanning my notes to see if I missed anything really big. I maybe want to wrap up with one final question, and then I'd love for you to just cover anything that I might have missed and maybe share a little bit more about what you've got coming up that people should know about. So I'd like to just, maybe you could wrap up with like a few final tips or like big lessons that you learned that you could share with anybody who is at, an early stage of tribe building or, already well into the process, but just looking to kind of level up.
Yeah, I guess the first thing, one of my favorite quotes in the world is by Marie Forleo, and it is, clarity comes from engagement, not thought. So I guess, and that's why we also have such a big action component to all of our events. I mean, you're not going to get clarity from thinking about something. You're going to get it by engaging, making mistakes, learning, and just taking action. So that is my number one thing. It's just like, just try, just do stuff. And if it doesn't work, whatever, it's all part of the learning curve. And you just got to keep showing up, especially for the people that show up for you. I think the other big one is like, screw the numbers, like don't care about the numbers. And I guess we were speaking about this the other day as well. It's just, in the beginning, I did focus a little bit on the numbers, be like, oh my God, there's only 35 people coming to my event. And, last time we had like 60 and what the hell and blah, blah, blah. And just like, again, the spiral thought, right? Yeah. But then those 35 people that came were absolutely incredible. And we had the most intimate evening because it was just 35 people and we were able to connect with the room on a deeper level. And I just think that it's really quality over quantity, and
totally.
You've got to show up for the people that show up for you. So that's another big one. And then I think, aside from, it's just the consistency, just being consistent and listening to feedback, but also following your gut, because it's great to ask feedback from people and then take what you want, what resonates and what sits with you well, and then just leave what you don't get too swayed by what people are thinking. But it is good to check in and just make sure that you're providing the value that people want.
I love that. No, and I totally resonate with all of that. And I think especially, well, actually all of it, the clarity, screwing the numbers, showing up, staying consistent and taking feedback in, but maybe with a grain of salt. And I think, the quantity versus or the quality versus quantity piece is something that even Grace and I were talking about and are always talking about, actually. You know, we always have to remind ourselves as well, because I think especially when you're running a business, right, and you're focusing on growth and wanting to do more and be more, it's easy sometimes to get misled into thinking that the numbers are everything, when in fact it's so much more about substance, impact, you know, resonance, and all of that amazing stuff. And I think actually that's at the heart of why your conscious community is so amazing. So do you want to share a little bit more about what you guys have coming up and what's going on with your community and maybe what's happening in Hong Kong? So many things.
So we're really excited for Hong Kong. It's going to be happening on Earth Day weekend, which is the 22nd weekend. Well, it's the 20th, 21st, 22nd of April. In Singapore, typically, we've only ever done one day for our festival, but in Hong Kong, we're going massive. We're doing 3 days.
Amazing.
So I'm really excited. We're also introducing like an industry day called Unconference, where we're going to be diving into making business circular and really looking at circular economy and the future of business. So that's something we haven't done before, and I'm so excited to learn about as well. I mean, we've got some incredible speakers for that. And then 2 days of festival in Hong Kong, and I'm just really excited to connect with the community there, to meet all the different groups we've been speaking to on email, that we've been having phone calls with, and just it's just such a thriving and lively group, and I'm just so excited to connect with them all. So Hong Kong's going to be amazing. Yeah. Then we're going to have our festival here in Singapore again, October, November this year. And yeah, we launched our online platform last October. So we have like an online directory now and a bunch of amazing content coming out every week around conscious living. So that's kind of what we're busy with at the moment.
Awesome. That sounds amazing. I'm going to check out your directory because I did not know that you had that going on.
Yes, you can discover brands from around Asia who are doing good
for
people on the planet. Yes.
Super cool. Okay, so final thing is, how can people keep in contact with you?
So they can follow Green is New Black on Facebook, Green is New Black Asia, or GITNB, so the acronym for Green is New Black, Asia on Instagram. They can sign up for our newsletter. We have a newsletter that comes out every Thursday. And yeah, I can just be found at Stephanie Dickson or Steph Dickson on all the socials as well.
Awesome, cool. I think I've got all your links, so I'll share those in the comments right after this. And then you've also got TV, right? As well.
We have a weekly show that comes out normally on Wednesdays, sometimes Thursdays.
Super cool. So thank you so much, Steph, again, for sharing all that amazingness. And for those who are watching, we've got, as always, a downloadable, well, actually this week it's a tip sheet. So those final wedges of wisdom that Steph just shared for tribe building are have been done up on a nice little tip sheet that you can print out and pin up somewhere, and just let that be your motivation and reminder to, you know, find that clarity, screw the numbers, show up for whoever shows up for you, stay consistent, and ask for feedback, but follow your gut at the end of the day. Awesome, Steph. Well, thank you so much for your time. I'm not going to take you up too much longer because I know it's almost been like an hour.
Thank you so much for having me.
I love it, and I can't wait. I'm sure we will have another reason to have you on here again, and I can't wait to keep following your journey and spreading the good stuff that you're doing. So I'm going to wrap up, and I don't see, I'm just looking out. I'm really not the best. I'm missing my partner in crime right now with managing Facebook and Zoom. But if there are any questions, if anybody's watching and has questions, I'm sorry if I've missed them here, but feel free to pop them into the comments, and I will be sharing all the links to connect with Steph or to follow more of what she's doing in the comments. So that's it. Anything else to add, Steph? Did I miss anything?
Nope, I think that's everything. The only other thing I would leave is just take a little green step every day.
I love it. And yes, exactly. Take a little green step and move towards change. That's what I'll add.
Yes.
Amazing. All right, sweetheart. Well, you have a good night. Thanks again for being on, and I will chat to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.